People who are sensitive, who are empathetic, they're really taken advantage of because that's a very rare quality these days. It's rare because these few people, they can really sit with themselves, they can process the feelings, they can they can do things that most of the people cannot do, and that comes from being vulnerable to themselves, about themselves. And they can be vulnerable only because they can they have the capacity to self-reflect, and self-reflection is one thing that people really do not do. They don't, and they can't. The fact is that they can't. And the world is full of narcissist people, and these are the kind of people who really tend to attract people who are sensitive enough. And it's the paradox is that people who are sensitive enough, they tend to fall for people who are controlling. They fall for such people because people who are been sensitive have mostly have had a very rough childhood. And even if they didn't have a rough childhood, they have that innate quality of pure love, and that is something that narcissist people don't have. It's by default not there, especially because of the way they have been brought up, that never got cultivated, and they seem to be stuck at that particular age where they were broken, completely broken. They were fragmented in their childhood, and that's why, to compensate for that, they find people who are submissive enough, who are innocent enough, who are caring and loving enough, who are detail oriented enough, who are really vulnerable and share their life without thinking twice about it. And people like us are really taken advantage of by people who do not have all these qualities. And as you grow into adulthood, as you come across people, be it friends, be it in relationships, be it colleagues, you'll slowly come to realize that these qualities are very rare, very, very rare. There are 8.3 billion people, and we do not get to meet most of them. But if we just see the kind of people that move into studying psychology, to who move into writing, and these kind of really deep fields, that's a very less number of people compared to the whole majority of the population. Majority of the population moves into direction where it's more of the manual repetition, where they keep doing the same thing over and over again. And even though it might look like they are growing by learning new and new skills, but within them they're not really growing. They might earn a lot of money, they might have the best kind of life, the best comfortable life. It need not be a high quality of life. There won't be any depth in it, and whatever lacks depth is very shallow. And shallow is something which will never know what love is, because love is a very deep quality to experience. To experience love is to forget about oneself, is to not have any identity of oneself in that moment. And it just comes from the person himself, that when you're experiencing something in that moment, there is no moment. So when you're with the person, you are not there. So when you're watching a tree, you become the tree. And when you're in an activity, you lose yourself in it, you immerse yourself in it. That's what love is, because then you become one with the thing itself. The same happens with the thought as well. When you when there's no duality, that's when you know what existence is all about. And when you become one with the silence of the mind, the quietness of it, there's really no difference between who you are in that moment, what you're thinking in that moment, because you're completely in that particular moment. And then uh, when you have that kind of capability, movement ceases to exist, because it then is just a flow of moments where you're not living moment to moment. Moment to moment means it's a linear progress where one moment uh, is progressive and it goes to the next moment, so that is from the past to the future. In reality, that really doesn't exist. If you really look at it deeply, it really doesn't exist. We talk about moment to moment experience and everything because we're stuck in that loop about having a distinction between the past, what the present is, and what the future is, and all these are just ideas. These are really not real perspectives of really deep, not even an experience, but if you really live, right, if you just be, you would not care about the ideas, the words, the meanings, the language, because you're just there. That's when time ceases to exist. There's a thing about physical time, but when it comes to psychological time, it really doesn't exist. That's why when we get lost in thinking, right, then the whole aspect of time has come into picture, because thought itself is time. Each thought that you think uh, is time coming into action. That means there's duality in that, because then when you're thinking, and this might sound paradoxical to a lot of people, because when you're not aware and you're thinking, right, you're missing out on the on the moment that you're experiencing. And this is, I'm referring to people who are not aware. But when you're really aware, what happens is that moment of thinking, that particular uh, point of thinking where the thought comes in, then it really doesn't differentiate between what reality is and what the thought is. It's just one, because in your experience there is no division, and the division ceases to exist only when the mind has merged with reality. And this is a very complicated thing to do. It really requires a lot of observation of the mind. Even when there has been observation, um, there there will be moments where you do not continue that particular experience of it. There will be moments where you drop out of that. And this is something I have personally come to experience, that this this is a thing about zooming in and going to the details of it and coming out of it. For example, you go in depth into something and you should have the capability of coming out of it. Go in depth, come out of it. Go in depth, come out of it. Because then you will have the micro perspective of it and also the macro perspective of it. So what that does is it just gives you that capability to go into something and also come out of it. But what usually happens is when people are lost in their thoughts, right? They can't come out of it. They don't get the macro picture. They don't even have the micro picture, because then they're lost in the details itself that they don't know what details they're lost in. And this is a very complicated area to understand. That's why the only solution is for one to observe themselves, observe the mind. That's something that not a lot of people can do. And I've seen this over and over and again, where it's all about what a person has gone through, what a person has lived, and they keep repeating those things. It's okay to talk about those things, but to live in it, to to have a present identity of life based on what you've lived, that's never going to do a good thing, because then you're reliving what you have already lived before, and you're attached to those particular identities. That 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 really deters the whole freshness of life. Because when you're living with the past in the present, right, it really doesn't give you freshness. There's no real clarity of life because it's corrupted by the past, and the past is time. The past is time, the past is the thought itself. So, if you think about it, if in that moment of experiencing there is no thought, then there is no time. That means it is just timeless in that moment of experiencing. Because then, what is experiencing and what what is experienced is not two things, because the depth of attention is so deep that the two merge into one. And even there, they can be zooming in and zooming out, where you can zoom in and be in that particular experience where there's no duality in it, and you can also zoom out and you would be able to articulate in the form of thoughts. But even then, when you're thinking about that particular thing or a person or yourself or anything, even there you are in that particular unending moment where there is no time. That's when there is just a flow and there's no particular past that your speech or your thought is coming from. And that's a very deep thing to understand.